Bonjour, bienvenue. Merci de nous rejoindre en salle de presse pour notre rendez-vous quotidien en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le vendredi 3 juillet. Nous avons quelques annonces à vous faire, comme chaque jour. Je commence, comme chaque vendredi, avec l'agenda de la présidente von der Leyen pour la semaine prochaine. Lundi, la présidente rencontrera M. Apostolos Tzitzikostas, président du comité des régions, par vidéoconférence. Mardi, la présidente participera à un webinaire sur une vision pour l'Europe rurale, exploiter le potentiel des zones rurales pour contribuer à une Europe durable et prospère, c'est le titre, organisé par le groupe Renew Europe au Parlement européen, là aussi par vidéoconférence. Mercredi, après avoir présidé la réunion du collège, la présidente s'adressera au Parlement européen sur la présentation du programme d'activité de la présidence allemande du Conseil de l'UE. Puis, comme elle l'a annoncé hier, la présidente s'entretiendra avec David Sassoli, le président du Parlement européen, Angela Merkel, la chancelière allemande, qui assume la présidence tournante du Conseil, ainsi que Charles Michel, le président du Conseil européen, dans le cadre de la réunion qu'elle a organisée sur base de l'article 234 du traité. L'objectif, comme je l'ai annoncé, est de faire le point sur les progrès accomplis dans les discussions sur le plan européen de relance et de préparer les négociations politiques à venir. Enfin, jeudi, la présidente recevra le Premier ministre slovène, M. Janez Janša. Voilà, j'appelle maintenant Tim pour une annonce sur le premier appel à projet lancé par la Commission sur le Fonds pour l'innovation.
Merci Eric. Bonjour tout le monde. The Commission is launching today the first call for proposals under the Innovation Fund. This is one of the world's largest programs for the demonstration of innovative, low-carbon technologies, and it's financed by revenues from the auction of emission allowances under the European Emissions Trading System. The Innovation Fund will use these revenues to finance breakthrough technologies for renewable energy, energy-intensive industries, energy storage, and carbon capture, use, and storage. The first call for proposals will provide grant funding of around 1 billion euros. This support will help promising new technologies to scale up and to reach the market, and of course will help us deliver the objectives under the European Green Deal. This is the first of a series of calls that will run until 2030, and which will have a total value which is expected to be around 10 billion euros, depending on the evolution of the carbon price in the coming years. So the deadline for submissions of applications for this first call is the 29th of October of this year, and all the other information is available in the press release which we've just published.
Thank you, Tim. J'allais appeler Sonia pour faire une annonce sur le tableau de bord du marché unique, mais elle semble avoir un problème de micro. Je vais donc faire l'annonce moi-même. Donc, le bon fonctionnement du marché unique est essentiel pour assurer la libre circulation de l'approvisionnement à travers l'UE et vital pour la reprise rapide de l'économie. La Commission publie aujourd'hui le tableau de bord du marché unique 2020. Les résultats montrent qu'en dépit d'améliorations dans certains domaines, les États membres doivent faire davantage pour garantir le bon fonctionnement de ce marché unique. Les résultats soulignent l'importance de l'attention renouvelée accordée à la mise en œuvre et à l'application décrite dans le plan d'action pour l'application des lois qui a été adopté par la Commission en mars 2020. Avant toute chose, un marché unique pleinement opérationnel nécessite un partenariat entre la Commission et les États membres. Le groupe de travail sur le marché unique nouvellement créé sera l'un des outils clés pour favoriser une telle approche collaborative entre la Commission et les États membres. Le tableau de bord est disponible en tant qu'outil en ligne. Pour en savoir plus sur le tableau de bord et ses principales conclusions, veuillez consulter notre communiqué de presse disponible dans toutes les langues officielles de l'UE. Voilà, j'espère que Sonia pourra nous rejoindre en cas de questions. J'invite maintenant Martha, qui est aussi en ligne, à nous rejoindre pour de bonnes nouvelles pour la Roumanie et la Pologne sous le plan d'investissement pour l'Europe. Martha.
Oui, bonjour, merci. Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Very good, thank you. So following the milestone reached by the European Fund for Strategic Investments, which I had the pleasure to announce to you yesterday, we have two new investment projects to highlight today, this time in Poland and Romania, funding projects. So in Poland, the European Investment Bank Group is providing financial support worth 450 million euros to Santander Bank Polska Group. This will allow Santander to provide up to 625 million of funding to companies impacted by the coronavirus crisis. Celem porozumienia zawartego pomiędzy Grupą Europejskiego Banku Inwestycyjnego a Santander Bank Polska jest wsparcie polskich małych i średnich przedsiębiorstw w obliczu obecnego kryzysu. And those who don't speak Polish, what I highlighted is that this transaction will be particularly beneficial to SMEs and mid-caps affected by the crisis in Poland. In Romania, the EIB and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development are providing new financing of 7.5 million euros and 5 million respectively to AgriCover Credit EFN, expanding Romanian farmers' access to finance. And in case you missed it, and as a reminder, as of June, the European Fund for Strategic Investments has mobilized 514 billion euros of investment across the EU, including 22 billion, more than 22 billion in Poland and 4 billion in Romania. It has improved access to finance for some 1.4 million startups and small and medium-sized enterprises across the EU. And of course, more information is available in our daily news online. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo, Marta. We are finished now with our announcements, and therefore we move straight to your questions. I think that Athanasios was the first to raise his hand. Athanasios.
Bonjour, Eric. It seems that yesterday there was an announcement for a visit of the High Representative Josep Borrell to Turkey this coming Monday and Tuesday. Could you give us some more details on his trip? What is he bringing there as a message? Who is he going to meet? And so on. Thanks.
Thank you, Athanasios. I pass the floor to Peter. Go ahead, Peter.
Hello, good morning. Hi, thank you, Athanasios. I can indeed confirm that on Monday, the High Representative will be in Ankara for exchanges with his Turkish counterpart and to discuss the overall relations with Turkey, including, or in particular, the recent developments and tensions in our relations, be it between the EU and Turkey or between the Turkey and individual member states. This is very important. And the trip and the exchanges are just an expression of the importance we are attaching to our relations with Turkey. So if you have a problem, you are going to discuss with your partner, obviously. Turkey is a candidate country for the EU. It's a NATO ally, and our relations have to reflect all this. We will, as usual, share more information on the details of the program and on the visit later on, once all the necessary arrangements are in place and all the details are fine-tuned.
Thank you. Thank you. Since we have opened the Foreign Affairs chapter, I understand that Odile has a question on Africa. Odile.
Oui, merci Eric. Bonjour. La présidente a annoncé hier qu'un sommet Union européenne-Afrique allait être prévu à l'automne, si je me souviens bien. Et tout d'abord, je voudrais rappeler quelques faits. Et I'm going to say it in English because I've read my sources in English. 840 million Africans have no access to electricity. Hundreds of millions have to live with power cuts, unreliable and limited power. Only 28% of sub-Saharan African health facilities have reliable power to run their equipment, save blood, store bloods, medication, and vaccine in order to be able to treat patients efficiently. In addition, house pollution created by burning charcoal and animal waste for cooking cause about 4 million deaths per year. In this context, according to many African leaders, exploitations and subsidies of African gas and oil companies is presently critically important, and even more so in this pandemic. To the well-being, it's important to the well-being of many Africans. By contrast, OECD and other institutions duly promoting climate change are in favor of leaving fossil fuel in the ground in Africa. And this is considered as a Western narrative by many African countries. Have you started thinking about this contradictions between saving climate change and also leaving Africa exploiting their gas and fossil fuel that they found in many countries? And this is what I heard at the Madrid COP25 from many African delegations, by the way. Thank you.
Odile, I'm not quite sure what it is that we can answer at this stage. I would like to pass the floor to Peter first to see if he has an immediate reaction to your question based on a very long statement. Peter.
Thank you very much. I'm also not actually very sure what was the essence of the question, but I would maybe underline the following. We are aware of all these things you just enumerated. We are aware of all the challenges Africa is facing, and that's why we are so engaged with Africa. I don't need to recall that there was a joint session and joint meeting between the whole European Commission and the African Union, and that's, I think, the best expression of our desire to exchange with African partners and to tackle all the problems and all the challenges they have. And another example of our determination is also all the assistance and help and support we are providing to Africa, not only most recently in the context of the coronavirus pandemic, but also in general. So I would just recall all the recent activities by the European Commission and by the European Union vis-à-vis Africa. And of course, we are in constant dialogue with the African partners, bilaterally, multilaterally with the African Union, to move forward to deal with all these challenges. And we are, of course, not ignorant to these challenges. And it's also in our interest to help Africa to overcome them.
Thank you, Peter. Tim, do you want to add something on this?
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to add in terms of the general frame that Peter has explained there in terms of our cooperation with Africa. As you know, when there was the European Union, African Union Commission bilateral, there was also a dedicated session on energy and climate issues, and the Executive Vice President Timmermans stayed on actually and traveled to South Africa to discuss some of these issues with his counterparts, as he does in the context of our global work on climate diplomacy. I would also just point, because you mentioned some of these issues, to what we say in the Green Deal about the international dimension, and we say that the EU should reinforce current initiatives and engage with third countries on cross-cutting climate and environment issues. This may include ending global fossil fuel subsidies in line with G20 commitments, phasing out financing by multilateral institutions of fossil fuel infrastructure, strengthening sustainable financing, phasing out new coal plant construction, and action to reduce methane emissions. So you'll find that in the Green Deal communication.
Thank you, Tim. I see that Anna Vandensky has raised her hand. As this is usually on Africa, I will make a small bet and pass you the floor, Anna, to see whether we continue on the African issue. Press speak again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I have a specific question on Ethiopia because the concerns are mounting. Since our Tuesday, we have no information about what happens in this country of 100 million people, because after the protest on Monday and arrests and reported killing of 80 people, their internet was shut down. And so there is a blackout. My question is, what is the position of the European diplomacy in this very much alarming situation? Because peace in Ethiopia is very fragile and everybody is very concerned about what happens there, and we have no information so far.
Thank you, Anna. This is clearly a question for Peter. Peter.
Indeed. Thank you, Anna. And maybe two elements I would stress in this. The first one on the protest, and then I will address also the issue of the connectivity and the internet and connections being shut down. I was mentioning in the previous answer how important Africa is for us as the European Union as a partner. And this also applies for Ethiopia. This is a long-standing partner for the European Union. That's why we are following very closely what is happening and what is going on in Ethiopia currently. We are following the rising tensions in the country. This is something that is worrying us, of course, and we are calling on everyone. We are calling on all sides to refrain from the violence. Violence can never be an alternative to a peaceful dialogue when you are trying to reach a sustainable solution in a conflict, in a situation of political conflict. And on the unfortunate events that led to the unrest and deaths of more than 80 people, first of all, I would like to express our condolences and sympathies with the families of the victims and wishing, of course, speedy recovery to all those injured. And it is very important that the violence stops. It has to stop immediately, and all sides have to refrain from violent actions in order to appease the tensions. Now, under the current circumstances, there is indeed a limited internet and phone connection in the country, but we are trying to follow what is going on through our delegation in Ethiopia, and we follow in particular the deadly clashes that occurred between the protesters and police in the capital, but also in other cities since the death of the singer Hachalu Hundeesa at the start of this week. And we are following also the arrests of journalists and opposition political party members. And in line with the statement which was issued by our partner, by African Union, we are calling for those responsible to be brought to justice through a transparent and independent investigation.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
I see that Christian and Momchil have got their hand raised. I suppose it is on External Affairs. Christian, à toi. Si c'est sur les affaires extérieures.
Oui, et on retourne à la visite de M. Borrell en Turquie. Je voudrais savoir quelle est l'analyse que font les services de M. Borrell des très mauvaises relations que nous avons en ce moment entre la Turquie et la France. Je voudrais savoir s'il est préoccupé par le fait que la Turquie continue de violer l'embargo sur les armes des Nations Unies en toute impunité et qu'il est impossible de contrôler les bateaux qui violent l'embargo quand ils sont sous escorte turque. Donc je voudrais savoir s'il va aborder ces sujets avec ses interlocuteurs lors de sa visite à Ankara, parce que j'ai cru comprendre que le sujet avait été inscrit à l'ordre du jour de la prochaine réunion des affaires étrangères du 13 à la demande de la France. Merci.
Merci Christian. Peter.
Merci Christian, bonjour. Sur l'agenda des prochains conseils des affaires étrangères, nous avons déjà annoncé avant de cette semaine qu'on va discuter la Turquie et tous les aspects de notre relation, tous les incidents, toutes les escalations qui ont occurré récemment. Donc on va discuter en Turquie le lundi 13. Entre le ministère des Affaires étrangères de l'Union européenne. Et comme vous avez dit, tous les éléments que vous avez mentionnés dans votre question, on va discuter aussi avec la Turquie pendant la visite des hauts représentants en Ankara. Mais à ce moment, je ne voudrais aller en plus de détails parce que je pense que c'est une chose très normale dans la diplomatie qu'on va discuter premièrement les soucis, les problèmes, les opinions, et aussi les propositions de solutions avec les partenaires, et on va discuter seulement après dans les médias et dans le domaine public.
Merci, Peter. Momchil, is your question on foreign affairs? If yes, please go ahead.
Yes, of course, it's foreign affairs. Hello.
Go ahead.
Yesterday, after your criticism to Russia yesterday, especially about the Article 79, which gives primacy of the Russian constitution over the international law, Mr. Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman of Kremlin, said that Russia, we will not pay attention to such so-called concerns, and that Russia will stick to its own sovereignty, and that's the practice and the same is the practice in a lot of states. How would you comment this? And is there any states in Europe which gave priority to primacy of their own constitution to the European or international law?
Peter, comments on the Russian reaction to your comments yesterday?
Yes, the reaction on the reaction on the reaction. I can say only one thing. Russia is a member of Council of Europe. Council of Europe is a body which is called Venice Commission, which gives legal opinion on legal issues when they are related to international law, to criteria, norms, etc. The Venice Commission has said that the amendment of the Article 79 about the primacy of the Russian constitution, about the international verdicts and international decisions and international law is not in line with the obligations Russia has. And the obligations are stemming from the membership in the Council of Europe. So I think it's a normal thing in the community of international states, or in the community of states, that you are living up to your international obligations. And that was what we were trying to convey yesterday. And that's basically it. On the rest, I would refrain from commenting.
Thank you, Peter. And as you know, Momchil, the European legal order is very, very clearly defined, and therefore there's absolutely no question on the primacy of EU law, as has been repeated here in this press room and in other fora on many occasions. Okay, I know that, Oliver, your question has something else. Let me see if there are other questions on foreign affairs. I see that Tony had raised his hand previously. Tony, is it on foreign affairs?
No, it's on something else related to the UK land bridge and Brexit.
Okay, hold on then. If you don't mind, I will go to Oliver, who had raised his hand earlier. So, Oliver, I believe you had a question on Remdesivir.
Yes, hi. Hello. You said the approval of Remdesivir should be decided on by the end of this week. That will be today. Can you give us an update where we are there? And then I have a question on own resources. Can you give us an update when the Commission will table proposals for the border adjustment measure or tax, whatever it is? And also for this special internal markets levy or tax for big corporations with more than 750 million euros of sales per year. So these two things I'd be interested in. Thank you.
Thank you. I like your invisible new headset, by the way. On the Remdesivir point, I would point you to our daily news, which actually answers specifically your question on the fact that it was approved today. So that is very easy for you to find. And on own new resources, as you know, the Commission has clearly said that the discussion on new own resources in terms of proposals will only take place at a later stage. So there is at the moment no timing fixed for presentation of specific proposals. We first need to have an agreement on the overall framework for Next Generation EU. Okay, so let me now move back to who had asked for the floor before. Well, I see it. Lawrence has asked for the floor. I see it was Tony. Sorry, Tony, I haven't forgotten you. We'll come back to you afterwards. Lawrence, go ahead. Press speak. We see you. Will we hear you?
Yeah, I know.
We hear you as well. Go ahead.
Oh, you do? Great. Excellent. You still good. Eric, thank you for allowing me to ask a question today. That's nice. It's a question for Peter. In fact, two. Peter, have I missed this, or has there been a suggestion that we could target boats carrying arms to Libya with sanctions. We could target the owners of boats. It's something that came up this week, and I wondered if that had been out there or whether that is new. And I just have a second question on the statements on Russia that came out yesterday. There were lots of technical quibbles with what the Russians had done in the plebiscite, but nowhere did we simply come out and say that this is a serious degradation of Russian democracy for such an important moment where Putin may be in power now for the next 16 years. It seems incredible that we didn't just come out and directly address that. So again, did I miss something, or is there a reason for that? Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. We had actually closed the chapter on international relations, but we will nevertheless take your two questions before moving back to other issues. Peter, I hope you are still vigilant. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Laurence. On the first question, there is no such decision made by the EU, so I wouldn't comment on whether this is a speculation or just some information out there, but it's not official decision by the European Union. And on the second one, I understood your question more as your comment and what we needed and wanted to say at this stage about the nationwide vote in Russia and about the way how this was done. We said yesterday at the midday, and we also reinforced in the statement issued later yesterday, and there is nothing I would add at this moment.
Thank you. Now, Tony, you had asked for the floor, but I do not see your hand raised anymore. Yes, now I see you. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I just wondered if you can confirm that there was an agreement in principle reached between the Irish government and the Commission on making sure that there are green lanes for Irish food exports to the EU single market that come across the UK land bridge. In other words, that these food exports won't be subject to the more stringent controls that are foreseen under the official controls regulation, which came into force in December. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand this is a question for Dan. Dan.
Yep. Hi, Eric, and hi, Tony. Thanks very much for your question. I think as a general starting point, the question over the land bridge between Ireland and the rest of the EU is something that we are well aware of. You know that well yourself, and you will have, of course, followed all of this very, very closely over the past couple of years. On the specific case about IT systems and what happens when products from Ireland enter into the single market again after going across the land bridge of GB. This is an issue that has been discussed between Ireland and the Commission and a number of relevant member states. This is something that I mentioned to you yesterday. This technical work is ongoing at the moment between all of the relevant member states, as set out in EU legislation. And at this point, I wouldn't have anything else to add.
Thank you. Do we have other questions for Dan on this issue? If not, Christian, c'est une question pour Dan?
Non, c'est une question pour toi, en fait.
Alors, attends, s'il te plaît, dans ce cas-là, je passe... je reviendrai, bien entendu, mais Christophe avait demandé la parole en premier. Voilà. Christophe, go ahead. Press speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Hi.
Krzysztof Strzemka, Polish Press Agency. Sorry for if it was raised yesterday or day before yesterday. I couldn't follow the midday. The question about the EU external border. Yesterday, Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said that he will not follow the EU recommendation on opening the borders for the 14 third states. And I saw in the Belgian press that the Belgium is also not opening its border now. I was wondering whether the Commission has any update which countries have followed the recommendation, which borders are open for the nationals and which not. Thank you.
Thank you, Christophe. Indeed, this question was answered at length yesterday by Adalbert, so I would invite you to go to the extract on EBS of his answers then. But on your specific point related to possible updates of countries' reactions when it comes to implementing this, I pass the floor to Adalbert on that point.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We are still collecting data from member states as to what the state of play of the implementation of the recommendation is. So I'll be happy to come back to you once we have a complete picture.
Thank you very much. I now come to Petra.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Petra.
Hi, Eric. I have a question about your announcement earlier about President meeting Slovenian Prime Minister Janez Janša on Thursday. I would just like to make sure that I understood well. Is this a face-to-face meeting? I mean, are they meeting actually in Brussels? Because then it's probably first meeting in a while, a physical meeting in a while, if I'm not mistaken. And then can you please describe a context of this meeting a little bit? I mean, whose initiative was it, and what are the topics that they will discuss? Thank you.
Petra, thanks for your question. I will need to check on the details of this meeting. I believe it is a physical meeting, but I'm not entirely sure. And on the context, we will have to come back. We will have to come back to you. Ok, Christian, je reviens vers toi.
Ça marche, tu m'entends?
Je t'entends, absolument.
Je voudrais revenir sur ce que tu as dit sur les ressources propres en réponse à Oliver, parce que là, je suis un petit peu perdu. J'avais compris que, en fait, la Commission, quand elle a présenté le Next Generation EU, disait qu'effectivement, pour aider à rembourser le grand emprunt, il fallait des ressources propres, parce que sinon, les deux autres options, c'était augmenter les contributions ou réduire les programmes. Alors, je sais que c'est pas avant 2028, mais le Parlement européen a fait un point dur sur l'histoire des ressources propres en disant qu'il voulait qu'il y ait des ressources propres dans le paquet qui va être proposé, qui doit être adopté. Et si vous présentez rien sur les nouvelles ressources propres, comment est-ce qu'on va trouver un accord avec le Parlement européen? Merci.
Écoute, je pense qu'il y a une réunion la semaine prochaine, le 8 juillet, entre les présidents des différentes institutions ainsi que la chancelière qui assume la présidence tournante de l'Union européenne, et que tous ces sujets seront mis sur la table à ce moment-là. La question qu'Oliver a posée, si je me souviens bien, était: est-ce que vous avez des dates précises pour la présentation de propositions, ce à quoi j'ai répondu que non. Effectivement, j'ai répondu qu'il y avait un lien entre ceci et la conclusion d'un accord sur Next Generation EU. Il est effectivement tout à fait possible pour une autre institution de présenter un autre point de vue. Et je pense que maintenant, il faut que nous laissions les différents responsables politiques en charge de ce dossier discuter entre eux de la meilleure manière de progresser sur ce sujet. Mais à l'ordre, si tu regardes le programme de travail modifié de la Commission, il n'y a à l'heure actuelle pas de date indiquée pour la présentation de propositions de nouvelles ressources propres. Voilà, je passe maintenant la parole à David.
Oui, merci Eric. Bonjour, excuse-moi si je n'allume pas la caméra, mais j'ai toujours mes problèmes de connexion d'ordinateur. Une question par rapport à ce que s'est passé hier, si je peux, et à la conférence de presse de la présidente von der Leyen avec la chancelière Merkel. Je comprends bien que les problèmes techniques ont pêcher la direct sur EBS avec l'interprétation. Ça arrive. Ma question, c'est comment a été sélectionné le pool de journalistes qui a pu être présent à la conférence de presse? Et vu qu'il n'y avait pas seulement des journalistes d'agence, mais aussi de journalistes pas d'agence, d'autres médias, je voulais savoir, là aussi, quels critères vous avez utilisés pour sélectionner ces journalistes. Merci.
Écoute, je comprends le sens de ta question. Tu comprends bien que nous étions dans une position qui était extrêmement difficile, comme je l'ai annoncé hier sur Twitter, quand j'ai vu que certains commentaires étaient faits sur ce sujet. La première chose que je voudrais dire, c'est que c'est une conférence de presse qui est organisée par la présidence tournante de l'Union européenne. Il se trouve que dans ce contexte-là, ils nous ont proposé qu'un certain nombre de questions soient posées depuis Bruxelles. Ça nous paraissait une bonne idée, mais effectivement, dans les faits, étant donné les contraintes extrêmement fortes qui pèsent sur nous et le temps très limité qu'il y avait pour la conférence de presse, il était impossible physiquement de pouvoir passer la parole à plus de quelques journalistes. Et donc, nous avons tout simplement proposé quelques médias de pays différents qui nous semblaient tout à fait pouvoir poser une question à la présidente. Voilà, c'est le seul critère que nous avons utilisé. C'est loin d'être parfait et nous essaierons certainement de faire mieux la prochaine fois.
Si je peux avoir un follow-up, je voulais justement savoir comment vous avez sélectionné ces médias qui étaient en mesure de poser une question à la présidente. Parce que ça, c'est je veux dire, moi, personnellement, je vois un problème au-delà des questions techniques. Ce n'était pas obligatoire d'accepter la formule proposée par la présidence allemande, si ça c'était le problème. La tradition de cette salle de presse, comme tu le sais bien, c'était toujours d'être une salle de presse ouverte. Je comprends bien qu'on sélectionne des journalistes pour des interviews, mais pour une conférence de presse, sélectionner des journalistes qui sont en mesure de poser une question à la présidente, ça me paraît quelque chose qui n'a jamais eu lieu dans la salle de presse de la Commission européenne.
David, je prends bonne note de tes critiques. Comme je l'ai dit, nous étions dans une situation compliquée. On a fait du mieux que nous avons pu. Je comprends que cela puisse ne pas te convenir. Nous allons réfléchir à la manière de faire les choses différemment. Effectivement, nous aurions pu peut-être tout simplement décliner, mais étant donné que la proposition avait été faite, on a essayé de faire pour le mieux. Je comprends que cela ne te convienne pas, mais cela dit, je pense que dans cette salle de presse, il y a 800 journalistes accrédités, tous de médias tout à fait respectables et tous en mesure de poser une question. Nous avons fait un choix qui est celui que tu connais et nous réfléchirons la prochaine fois à comment organiser les choses éventuellement différemment. Voilà. Je passe la parole maintenant à Mathieu. Mathieu, ton micro est sur silencieux, me dit-on. Ça ne semble pas marcher, donc nous allons passer à Tommaso.
Yeah. Yes, good morning. Thank you for the floor. It's just a follow-up, sort of, to the question of my colleague David Carretta. I just wonder if you, please, could explain why the press conference yesterday was broadcast is almost totally in German without providing translation, because I mean it was a disadvantage for non-German speaking. Thank you, speakers. Thanks.
You're absolutely right, Tommaso, and I immediately responded by Twitter to explain that we had had an unforeseen technical issue. We had organized interpretation into French and English, and for technical reasons which we had not foreseen, it turned out that it was impossible to synchronize the sound and the picture. We immediately tried to repair this error by making available the recordings on EBS in French, English, and German as soon as they could be made. Look, the fact is we're operating in an exceptional environment. We have been trying for the past 4 months to provide you with the best possible service in this virtual press room, and I think you know that. From time to time, issues will arise, and we are trying to make sure that when they do, we correct them as quickly as possible. I take full responsibility for what happened yesterday, and we will learn from this experience, obviously, and try to ensure that next time around things work better and are more aligned with your wishes. But please bear with us, because sometimes, despite our best attempts to try to control absolutely every angle of the organization of press events, things can unfortunately go in unexpected directions. Lawrence.
Is accusing you guys of any kind of malice or ill intent. We know the difficult circumstances that you guys are working under, but you made it clear you reached out to API and didn't get a response to them. It just seems relatively straightforward that at that point you send an email around to your very large list of journalists and say, look, this is the decision that we've made. We only have 4 questions. We've picked the 4 organizations, or maybe we've picked 3 organizations. If anyone desperately wants to ask a question or has a concern with this, let us know. Apart from anything else, we didn't know if it was press statements or a press conference, because it had been announced as a press conference, and yet there was no possibility of asking questions. So even from that point of view of planning, it was not a great situation. Again, I don't think anyone's accusing you guys of malice, and you tried very hard not to do this, but I just think that would have been reasonable to let us know in advance what was going on. Thanks.
Lawrence, I take your point. I don't say that we acted perfectly. Indeed, the whole situation arose in a context of an extremely heavy workload on many different fronts, and we tried to organize things as best we could. Indeed, it turned out that our consultations with API, and I do not blame API, by the way, at all in this regard either, turned out to be unproductive. Certainly, we can think about other ways of proceeding next time. As I said, indeed, there was definitely on our side rather the intent to try to give Brussels-based journalists an opportunity to raise questions, as opposed to simply saying we're not doing anything from here, just sort it out with our interlocutors in Berlin. On reflection, in view of the way the commentary has gone, I can tell you that I will think twice about doing this next time, and I am sure that you will find ways of asking your questions directly to the rotating presidency. So this is where we stand. Okay. I don't know if there are other questions on this. I see 2 hands raised. From the Finnish news agency, but I do not see the name of the colleague. I don't know if it's on this as well. If not, I have Mathieu, who has been asking for the floor for quite some time. Who is the colleague from the Finnish news agency? Etta? Etta. Is it on this?
Thank you. Yeah, it's on this. Yeah. Hi, I'm Heta Hassiner from the Finnish News Agency. It's a follow-up. What can we expect from the future? Like, when is possible to maybe return to the press room, and like when there is going to be more face-to-face contacts in Commission, press organization, and so on? Thank you.
Thank you, Etta. We would be delighted to be able to meet again face-to-face here in the press room. You can believe that. It's quite an unusual experience to stand here day after day looking at a big screen and a little camera. Thank God I have my colleagues here to give me company. We give each other company, in fact. The answer to your question is that we do not know. It will depend on the Commission's policy when it comes to progressively reopening the Berlaymont. This is not yet on the cards. We've had, in fact, this question before. It's a very legitimate question, and I would like to point out that even when we do reopen the press room, it will be under very strict health security measures, which means that only limited seating will be available in the Berlaymont for you from the media, and therefore, certainly in initial phase, we will continue with a hybrid system so that journalists who cannot enter the press room will be able to connect. And let me point out, by the way, in this regard, that we will also have an issue there of determining who comes to the press room, right? When there is a press conference which wants to be attended by a large group of people, and that we only have, say, 60 seats available in the press room, this will be an issue on which I've also started to consult API. And let me tell you, there is no easy solution except to say first come, first serve. So bear with us because this discussion, this conversation is going to continue. Lorenzo. Lorenzo, press speak. Appuie sur.
Oui, je fais.
Voilà.
Ça va?
Oui, on t'entend.
Ok. Ok. Je ne sais pas pourquoi ça ne marchait pas. Oui, je le dis en anglais. Concerning what happened yesterday, I do understand and fully appreciate the fact that you had asked Abby, and Abby had said that didn't want to intervene in any selection. What I would like to say is, also following what Lawrence and David have said, is that probably what we can say today is it would have been better either to refuse to select the journalists, because this is what was wrong, to select the journalists yourself, or to organize. I mean, it's working so well, this system now, the system we are using today. And if we had known that that was a press conference, it could have been organized as a press conference as today, where you decide, you can manage the fact that some journalists can ask questions from where they are, instead of having just 4 journalists selected that enter the Berlaymont and can ask the questions. So the problem, I just would like to say this, the principle is very clear. And this is what David has said. It is not up to the institution to decide which journalists are invited to answer to questions in a press conference. If it is a press conference, it must be a press conference. So either everybody can apply. If there is a limited number, then there is a first come, first arrive, first take the possibility. But it should never be that the institution selects the journalist on no matter which criteria. There was also the disgraceful incident of the translation, which was a big problem for many of us, because then the articles arrived 2-3 hours later. And but I appreciate it was a technical mistake, and I know that you are doing everything possible for this. So I fully believe that you have done what you could after. But the principle, I think, must be absolutely clear. I would like also to end saying that I think we all appreciate the efforts and the way things have been going in these months. It works. It is working. So let's make it. Let's learn a lesson from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Indeed, we live and learn, as the saying goes. To come back to your point about using the system that we use on a daily basis, it's something that was not technically feasible when we were discussing the arrangements, but it is something that we will look into with our counterparts in the rotating presidency. But clearly, it is not for us to take any decisions in this regard. I welcome the very clear statement from API that now that we should, under no circumstances, work this way. I would simply like to remind everybody that there is, of course, always a selection one way or another, simply because even if you are present in the press room, ultimately I decide who gets the floor. And I specifically did not want to ask people to come to the Berlaymont under the current circumstances, which are delicate from a health point of view, if there was no opportunity to give them the floor. But look, I entirely accept that we face a situation where there is unhappiness on your side. There is a level of dissatisfaction on our side as well, both on the technical dimension and on the fact that we have to discuss this for such a long time here in the press room. Believe me, that is a good motivator to try to put in place another system next time around. But I appreciate your comment on the fact that you know that the intention of the spokesman service is to provide you with opportunities to have interactive exchanges with us, whatever the circumstances are. It did not turn out perhaps exactly the way we wanted it this time, but it definitely is simply linked to the circumstances in which the event took place, nothing else. Okay, I think that we have now closed this chapter, and we will come back to Mathieu, who has some content-related issues, content-related questions. I think, Mathieu, try to connect. If not, I will read your question out. Ou pardon, je vais parler en français. Tu n'arrives pas. Alors, Mathieu, je vais lire ta question. Sur l'arrêt de la Cour de Karlsruhe sur le caractère proportionné que quantitative easing, sur l'arrêt de la Cour sur le caractère proportionné que quantitative easing, je suis désolé, mais la question n'est pas claire. La BCE a transmis des documents à la... Ah oui, d'accord. Donc c'est sur l'arrêt de la Cour de Karlsruhe sur la politique monétaire de la BCE. La BCE a transmis des documents à la Bundesbank. Le gouvernement allemand a officiellement réagi et hier, le Bundestag a adopté une motion validant l'action de la BCE. Est-ce que la Commission considère que l'affaire est close ou compte-t-elle agir pour faire respecter la primauté du droit de l'Union européenne? Mathieu, la réponse à ta question est extrêmement simple. L'analyse des différents aspects de l'arrêt de la Cour continue ici au sein de la Commission, et c'est une fois que cette analyse aura été terminée et que la Commission aura choisi la voie à suivre que nous serons en mesure de vous fournir plus d'informations sur la suite à donner à cet arrêt. Voilà. Je ne vois pas d'autres questions. Jonathan, y a-t-il d'autres questions? Non. Alors, merci beaucoup à vous pour votre participation. Une semaine un peu mouvementée qui se termine. La semaine prochaine sera aussi très active. Donc, reposez-vous bien ce week-end et à lundi. Merci.